My name is Karri Jäkkö. I'm head of department at Elisa, CSOC. I'm here to talk about battle against fraud calls. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the Nigerian letters and scam calls and whatnot, and then you've been thinking that who can be so stupid that falls for those? Well, quite a few actually. Jussi from National Bureau of Investigation will go a little about that, how many people actually fall for those sort of easy to spot fraud calls or emails or whatnot. We are today spending some time talking about the battle against fraud calls. So A-number spoofing or caller ID spoofing. I have to, because I'm from Elisa, I have to go through a couple of very quick slides about Elisa. If I ask about people what is Elisa, most of you will say Finnish teleoperator. We actually have operations in more than 100 countries. We have staff in more than 20 countries. So we are surprisingly international company, market leader in Finland in telecommunication. And as Ilari said, we are hiring all around in Elisa. So if you are looking for new opportunities, personal development, please reach out to Elisa people today. We are hiring to almost all positions, so check out the website and the openings. There's at least few people here. Sari is here, and there's Jani and Juhani and some other people also here. So contact them if you want to hear what's it like to work for Elisa. A little bit about the agenda. I'm not going to spend too much of your time, just around 5 minutes, and then the guys with some substance and content with them on their slides will come to the stage. But just very quickly about the next hour, what we're going to spend here. We're going to talk about what is it, why, and is this relevant at all? And then we're going to go through the first action, how we at Elisa saw the problem, what we did, and how we did it, and did it have any impact. So you will see Jukka will demonstrate you about how massive the problem was becoming in Finland. We already heard that in elsewhere in the world, for example in Canada, the problem was so big that the people had lost their trust to caller ID altogether. So basically, a friend of mine from Canada, from Vancouver, told me that if he wants to call somebody, he needs to send a message first that it's really me, so pick up the phone. So we did it. That's the kind of one of the basic corners of our business. So we didn't want to lose that. So then. It was a nationwide problem. One operator cannot fix the whole problem, so we had a good cooperation all the time with Traficom, and Lauri will go through how we did the nationwide model and how is it going at the moment, and how's the problem looking at the moment. And then in the end, the sort of a cherry on top. Jussi from National Bureau of Investigation, keskusrikospoliisi for the Finnish-speaking people, will go through how has the problem been in the eyes of police and how is it at the moment. But really excited about to come here. Thank you HelSec, thank you Riku and all the people who made this possible, and thank you for the invite. It's absolutely beautiful to be here today. So the problem, I don't know how many of you know what is caller ID spoofing. I assume that everybody, but just to make sure that you know. So the basic idea is that using a fraudulent A number, so caller ID, the attacker gains is more trustworthy towards the victim. And using Finnish phone numbers is actually quite efficient way to trick the victim to do whatever they want to do. Mostly these are called what's it called, the Microsoft scams as well. So we at Elisa saw that this is a very big problem, and it's damaging the trust in Finnish phone numbers.
Did you only see phone number spoofing or also alphanumerical spoofing, like Danske Bank or whatever?
That's actually quite a different story, but the very good question. We could maybe come here in 6 months and have a talk about that as well. But this is actually a number spoofing, so caller ID spoofing. So these are some of the headlines from the news just in maybe in couple of weeks only during the 2021 summertime. So a very big problem in Finland. We had quite a lot of customer complaints, as you saw, a lot of media coverage. Most of the media was asking why operators don't do anything. As said, we felt that the trust for caller ID was endangered, and we at Elisa had a very inadequate and lack of fact-based situational awareness. So we didn't know how big of a problem this actually is. We felt that it is, and customers were complaining, and the news were all over us, but we didn't have any technical kind of figures how big of a problem it was. And then somebody dared to say that it is impossible for us to do anything. And one of our senior security analysts said that this is BS, that you can always do something. We can't maybe fix the problem whole, but we can always do something. Let's do something. Let's not just sit here. And we established a very unofficial Elisa anti-fraud squad. And the squad focuses only on phone scams from technical perspectives. We had participants from production, CSOC, customer service, and other business units. And the purpose of this squad was to identify and address most of commonly used and upcoming scam types. And we realized that there is not a single solution to fix the problem, but there's a lot of small things that we can do. And instead of saying that there's nothing we can do, we decided that there's a loads we can do, but none of the things will fix the problem as a whole, but it makes it a little bit more difficult for the attackers. And let's not make Finland very like a lucrative place for the attackers. So we wanted to lead the change at Elisa. We had a good discussion with Traficom, we had a discussion with other operators, and we felt that there were some ideas that what could be done, and we decided that okay, let's go and do it. Let's be a leader and do the change, and at the same time have the cooperation with the Traficom, and maybe with that way we can solve the problem nationwide. And as said, I'm not going to spend more of your time. Jukka will come and show you how big of a problem it was, and what we did, and how it affected.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jukka.
Is this on? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, thank you. Hello, guys. Let's keep the introduction short, because you noticed that there's 4 speakers in this presentation on stage in 1 hour. My name is Jukka Pietarinen. I'm security manager at the Elisa production unit, responsible for the telecommunication area security. I worked for Elisa more than 20 years now. I've been in telecommunication business almost 30 years, so I'm maybe not the new talent that you are looking for. I've been here for a while now. I'm here to introduce the Elisa solution to the A-number spoofing. A-number, well, it's the caller ID. The technical term actually is the A-number. It's caller ID. The B-number is the receiver ID. And in fixed line calls and also in first generation of mobile calls, the number falsification is pretty easy. If you have access to signal network, you have well, it's on top of the TCP/IP. You can have the open source tools which understands the protocol. You can use the old devices from operators when you have access to SS7 network. So it's pretty easy. Yeah.
So before going to all the technical details, I'm still kind of struggling to understand the human problem in the sense that does having a Finnish number, is that enough? Because I mean, I also got this one.
It seems to be.
And usually they are foreign numbers, but even if they would have a Finnish number, I don't know, I just like it's no different. Did they really pick a number that has Microsoft Finland, or like what happened really?
Actually, the numbers were randomly picked. So basically, Finnish people trust Finnish numbers a lot more than the foreign numbers. That seems to be a fact. When you're using the numbering of the Finnish operators, the rates of successful scam is huge. So yeah, that's most of the cases they just randomly pick some kind of a number and use that. I know the cases that companies help desk number has used, but those are quite random cases. Usually they just take a block of numbers and use those. Okay, let's continue. The actually falsifying the A number is not the scam itself. It's a tool to build the trust. As I explained, Finnish people tend to trust the Finnish local numbers. If you're using Finnish numbers, you get 3-4 steps ahead, convincing the possible victim that you are who you claim to be. No.
Exactly, that's the point.
There's no logic behind that, but just using the Finnish number seems to be the trick.
Do you have data on how much
Yeah,
successful it is? Like numbers?
I have a lot of graphs that I will be showing later on. They don't actually separate well, they're based on the Finnish number, because we can see how many of the Elisa numbers were scammed. But I will be showing later. Let's go through the first slide. This is the only slide where I have the text and then I have graphs. So using the local numbers is the way to build the trust. And we in Elisa thought that if we take away the trust there, if we move the possibility to use just Finnish numbers, we could have a positive affection to the criminal activity. Positive meaning they are not actually succeeding. And we're able to affect the criminal benefit that the bad guys are gaining. But let's go back to the why this is possible. Well, it's possible due to the fact that the signaling system 7, which is the signaling protocol in fixed line and the first two generations of mobile, is obsolete. The standardization started back in 1970s. It has evolved ever since, but the mobile parts, I think those were added in early 1990s. So it's an old protocol. There's no built-in security. There's no way to verify the customer IDs, their addressing, and so it's kind of like TCP/IP. If you want to build security on top of the protocol, it can't be in a protocol. It needs to be built on top. Another thing causing this problem is that the operator's environment has changed during the years. So basically, it used to be a kind of operator isolated sandbox. It was based on trust. We didn't actually need the security features there. But now SS7 interface SS7 access can be ported from internet. So operators are selling the SS7 connection for business purposes, of course, but without proper control what kind of traffic there is. And of course, operators, the SS7 network is global. So there's different kind of operators with different kind of policies. And gaining the access to SS7 network is currently pretty easy. It's not isolated anymore. I will be focusing to the mobile solution because the fixed line is kind of easy. If you have a fixed, it's supposed to be fixed. It should be inside of a Finnish borders. So basically, it's kind of a firewall. You just deny everything coming from abroad with the Finnish numbers, and then allow those numbers, those number blocks that you know and that you can verify. So basically, if you have operators have a customer who has a help desk in Spain using the Finnish number, usually there's a contract between the companies. There's a different interface for this traffic, so you can be sure that this block of Finnish numbers, fixed line numbers, they are real, and block everything else. But the mobile is a bit more trickier because customers can be in Australia, in Spain, in Alaska, and we need to accept the calls from abroad to our network. However, there's an advantage. The mobile network always knows where the customer is because we can't provide the service to customers if we don't know where the customer is. So that piece of information is kind of a basis for our solution. When signaling comes in, there's a small time slot before the call is connected, and that's the decision point, what we should do for the call. There's two options that we're using at the moment. If the number is outside of any numbering plan, basically total nonsense, because all the operators have their numbering plan, and there's a caps between those numbering plans, and if a number hits the cap, we know that it's fraud. We can drop it. We never connect the call. If the number is Elisa's mobile number, but we haven't allocated to any customer, so we know that it's in our number block, but there's no real customer behind the number, we can drop the call. If the customer is not registered in the network, so mobile phone is off, we can drop the call. And in case we notice that the customer is online, registered in a network, sorry, I will go through this. Registered in a network, we can check out whether the customer is abroad or in Finland. That's the level of information we need in this case. It's just enough. So we're checking if the customer is here in Finland and call comes from abroad, then we just wipe out the A number there. We connect the call through. The scammer probably can get their answer to his try, but the receiver gets the call from unknown number. So that's we could drop the call in this case as well, but we decided to try just to wipe out the number and take a look at could that be enough to crumble the trust between the possible victim and a scammer. It seems to be. I have some figures to prove it. But all in all, that's how we do it. In a mobile phone, when the mobile phone call comes in from abroad, if it's total nonsense, we drop the call. If it's valid customer, we are able to check from the network whether we should connect a call or wipe out the number, or is it legit call. And then let's go to the graphs that I promised you. these are quite old because we introduced this or implemented this solution during the first weeks on July 2021, and this is actually what we saw then. So this was the first point when we actually get some kind of statistics. What is the situation with the fraudulent calls in our network? And this is percentage of calls that are where the A number is falsified. And high peaks, it was almost 90% of calls. So 86, 87 calls out of 100 coming into our network abroad were falsified. The problem was huge back then, more than a year ago. Yep.
Can I ask a question? You said that these were the calls coming from abroad.
Yeah.
Okay. So does this mean that people are not really calling us from abroad, but or does this mean that the fraudulent calls, the amount that
This is a percent of from the total calls that was falsified. It doesn't really, well, the COVID-19 might have affected the incoming calls because people couldn't travel that much. But however, all the calls coming into our network, 90% in high peaks, were falsified. You had a question? Sorry, I forgot.
No, that's fine. So on the previous one, you mentioned this idea of using kind of a method to identify cases where you had A numbers that were really fraudulent because they were using an area or range of the numbering plan that was not in use or not allocated.
Yeah.
Did that give you any kind of option to do something beyond than identifying and looking at the calling? For example, do you have visibility on the source of the routing that you blacklisted somehow? If you know that there's no valid use case where that could be essentially a normal source for these type of calls, they have to be fraudulent by design.
Yeah.
Using a false A number for that range. But it's so that it's not visible because of the routing scheme, you cannot see the source and therefore you cannot blacklist it.
Well, the call routing international is quite wild. We can't really see the source.
How far can you see inside the routing?
Well, we can't be sure. Yeah, well, we have partners, international partners, who are kind of a hub for us. So we know the first leg from our networks to their network. But after that, it's a bit foggy. Yeah.
And you also said about the method of having the location of the customer and comparing it to the location where the call comes from. Are you just using the email number there to know kind of where the customer was dialed into the network, or how do you do that? Like, how do you do that method?
Well, we are using SS7 message called anytime interrogation, which gives you. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, well, cell ID, but that's you can use parameters not to have the cell ID. Yeah, and we just need the information that whether the customer is in Finland in our network or somewhere else. You can have the cell ID, but we're not using that.
So when you the time of testing, you query at that time, and not kind of keep track of.
When the signaling comes in, there's a few milliseconds, few hundred. Yeah, and then we decide whether to connect the call, wipe out the number, or is it a legit call. Okay, let's go forward. This is 1 week in the beginning of last year's July. The first day there is Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday, and so on. I will describe the colors here. The blue one is the legit calls. The gray one is the calls that we have noticed that the number is total nonsense, the customer is not in our network, so those are the dropped calls. And the orange ones are the ones that we have noticed that the customer is in Finland, but the call comes from abroad. So we are using clear, which is calling line identification restriction. So we wipe out the number. As you can see, the shares between the legit traffic and the A number spoofing is huge. And it seems so also that the scammers are starting on Monday, and weekends are quite silent compared to the other days. Here's another graph showing 3 separate days from last July. There's a time scale there. So the first, these are all fraudulent calls. So again, this is a percentage of all calls, and the percentage of the calls that are fraudulent. So the A number is spoofed. So it starts on 7 o'clock, and then the high peaks raise, and they keep quite steady, starting from 8:15. And they are 9 to 5 workers, so basically 8 to 4:30 workers. So almost all calls are dropped, or the graph goes down when the offices here in Finland are closed. So basically these scams are targeted, those starting on Monday and business hours, targeted for people working in offices using the company computers, stealing the information from their computers. There's one day when they did overtime. Probably they didn't achieve their goals in time.
Sorry, question.
Yep.
Is there any valid scenario where someone would be in Finland with the call and coming from abroad? Like, is there a reason why you wipe the number and not just block the call?
There's certain services, for example, multi-SIM service, which is where the customer main subscription can be in Finland, but the customer is abroad. So we wanted to be sensitive, but currently the situation is that we can just drop the call. But we haven't decided yet. It seems that it's just enough to cripple the trust that we wipe out the number. People get suspicious. Okay, then month after, colors are just the same. Blue is the legit traffic, orange is the wiped out numbers, and the gray ones are the dropped calls. It has had and the scale of the blue is pretty much the same that it was in the previous picture. So basically, the amount of traffic is just the same. And it seems that our solution was quite effective month after. So Saturday, Sunday, again, almost no traffic at all. High peaks on early hours, early business hours. Then the traffic is fading away. And this is the last graph, the current situation. The blue one is the legit. The red one is the drop call. And orange one again is the wiped out A numbers. So, and we have, as you might remember in the first graph that I showed you, 90% of the traffic was spoofed. Now 90% of the traffic coming into our network is legit. 10% are dropped, and a bit more than 2.5% are connected through without the A number. So, as a conclusion from my presentation is actually what Karri said. You can always do something, and the little things that you do can be effective. We just targeted to trust. We didn't want to restrict all the calls to our network. But there's a team behind this solution in Elisa, and a few bright ideas, a bit of an agile way to try things out. and this was a solution. Okay. Yeah. No. No, because we're just drop out the falsifying numbers. Call incoming to your prod. No, it's not. Doesn't affect your bills at all. You're just accepting call. But if you would be a prod, someone calls you, then it's a bit. No, in Finland you can receive the call without additional charge from a prod. Yeah, but actually there might be a way that's affecting. Yeah. But I need to check that out. I can't give you a straight answer at the moment. Sorry. Okay.
Not sure if this comes later in the talk, but kind of the main important question is like why is it still done? I mean, we all grew up with foreign calls being expensive. Some of us had to do phone greeting to call abroad.
Yeah.
Why is it still working for them? Do they get like zero cost calls abroad? Like why is it lucrative business? That's the implication. I mean, if they make hundreds of calls into foreign countries.
Yeah, routing through the SS7 network, the call routing. Usually they're using some kind of a zip connection or web connection, which is not costing them that much. And the idea of a spoofed number is just to be a tool for the scam.
Again, I'm saying why do those scammers still exist? If it's expensive to call abroad for them, they wouldn't exist.
It's not expensive. They're using internet connections in the first leg there. Yeah.
What was the timeline for this? So how long did it take you after identifying the case as a problem, and how much time passed until you went to spoof level solution? How many proposals did you get into?
It was a year ago, so these are a bit of estimates. I would say it took 2 months from the idea to first testing and then implementation. Because there's a system called IN, which is Intelligent Network, a bit of a legacy telecommunication system, which is actually built for this. So it can take calls in, it can trigger questions, SS7 messages to check out the different things. So we did it by ourselves, it's our code, but it wasn't that tricky.
Yeah, so are you looking also for using StirShaken, especially in the US, and what we cut off from roaming with that?
StirShaken actually, well, it's certification based. It should be used by anyone to get the full benefit of it. We're quite happy with this solution at the moment. Probably in the future, when the usage of StirShaken is globally more wider. One more question, because there's two.
If my number gets spoofed, could that be considered as an identity theft or something like that? And if my number gets used in a spoofing fraud call, should I get some notification from somewhere that this has happened?
It's probably identity theft, but we really don't know the scammers. It comes from somewhere, probably from India, the call. In order to not to be part of the identity theft, I recommend you to choose Elisa as a mobile operator. because we have a working solution for it. Okay, thank you. Lauri.
Thank you, Jukka. Very good. So, can you hear me? Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Okay, so I think we move forward. So, thanks for Karri, Jukka. Wonderful job. So, I will now go to the Traficom part. And I'm very happy to see here people also from Traficom. Where are you? Okay, there are several. Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Joo, selvä. Toimiks nyt? Okay, wonderful. So here's my agenda. We haven't much time, but I think I just summarize something about myself and about our work. And I think it's a good way in a latter part to do the kind of summary what our recommendation and regulation is in a nutshell. And then we have some time for the questions and summary. So about myself, I work in Traficom, and that's and in a unit which is part of the National Cybersecurity Center. So I got a background from Nokia, Elisa, Radiolinja, and I've been in quite a few projects concerning cybersecurity, and also instructed a military university here in Finland. But let's go forward. So what we can say about what happened during 2020 and 2021 is that in the latter part of 2020, we in Traficom really saw, and our experts saw, that there's a very serious problem evolving here in Finland. And I would say that the CLI spoofing had really arrived to Finland during 2020. And in the beginning, in September 2020, I think we saw some 10,000 of spoofed calls every week. And our radar was quickly to see that in the first quarter of 2022, this increased to volume of several millions of spoofed calls. And then that was really a big problem. And what we can say that Finnish operators did a pretty good job. Elisa did, and I have to also say that DNA did and Telia did, because they were also able to use data analytics here. But the main thing was that there was so huge amount of calls that the data analytics didn't do the trick 100%. That was really a big problem. And also we in Traficom, we received lots of reports from individual citizens, business and organizations concerning tech support and support calls from fixers, banks or financial companies of call centers. So we had, I don't know, hundreds or even thousands of tickets. What we did then is that we made a quite depth pre-analysis. What is the situation? And that was in beginning in intra Traficom. But very soon we also contacted our Nordic counterparts, EU and also in the US FCC. So we got a clear picture what is happening. We were first thinking that if there would be any model brought from outside Finland to tackle this problem, but we found that actually there was none very fast one to do that. So what we did, actually, we turned to our telecom operators and the other authorities And what we did, we tried to quite carefully listen to telecom operators like Elisa and also others, and what were their views on this problem. And also LIAS, like National Bureau of Investigation, was also involved. So we quite quickly found out that it is really Traficom's task to lead the development here work. So operators by themselves can do that. Maybe they can do it that partly, but there should be one organization to lead the whole process. And that was the reason why I initiated a task force to scale this problem in February and March 21, just to bring all the pieces of the puzzle to the table, size the work to understand the problem, and then you could say conceptualize the problem to well-defined parts. And this was our approach to the recommendation work. So when we started, we gathered all the major and also quite a few small telecom operators in 10 different workshops. So those workshops run from June 21 until this year, January. So I could say 7-8 months. And our work was to facilitate the whole process, documentation, setting the schedules, and also at the same time sketching the future recommendation and regulation here. And also reviewing the outcomes versus the target. So we have a clear target to tackle the problem, and we have the timeline, and we were thinking how to do that process from the start to the end. And we set our goal as that we need a national model. We don't have time to adapt that from EU, European Union, or US or elsewhere. We need a model that should be implemented during very short time, and also something that could be later on further developed. And one of our working methods was that we gave operators quite frequent homeworks. So after one workshop, we got kind of a new status, and then we gave them new material to study and answer those for the next workshop to validate the possible solutions. And if we think of our working methods, it is really, in a way, a little bit tricky, because at the same time, we had to be quite down to earth to understand what is possible and what's not. But also we need to have a kind of a visionary target, that meaning that we really have to solve the problem. So in our task force and our group, we really needed new, fresh ideas. And for example, thanks to Elisa, we really got those. Thanks Jukka, thanks Karri, everyone. Innovations and really exceptional alternatives. At the same time, we need also all from the telecom operator specialists who really have time and resources and also authority to do things and launch tests. And we also need a kind of a group, kind of a collective, where we can discuss freely, argue, regenerate new ideas and improve our model. And also people who have authority in their telecom companies to do things. And also really people who have a motivation and a will to take challenges here. And then there was also one quite important thing, maybe it is not so easy to understand, that if you think of the company confidential information, if we think of basically all the major Finnish mobile large companies, so it's not very easy to companies to go to the same table without Traficom or any authority and discuss about techniques and these issues, because by the legislator you could see that this is in a way kind of unlegal cooperation. And that was also something that we took very seriously, and we were always leading the meetings in a way that we were only discussing about those things that won't be confidential here. Because the competition laws and anti-competitive cooperation is a very serious thing. But that wasn't a problem. And finally, very important thing was that we have here Finland large companies, but we have also quite small companies operating in the international interface. So we really had to find a solution that wouldn't be setting too heavy investments for those small companies. So I think that Jukka quite well explained all the technologies, but I could say that the problem was really tricky, and as said before, there were people around the world who said that you can't solve this problem. So there is no single solution. But what we actually did is that we found, I don't know, maybe that was September last year, that actually, if you think of this dilemma, there's only two major questions that we have to answer, and this is the solution to the dilemma. And one thing is that how we handle the mobile telephone subscriber roaming, and the other one is that when we get a Finnish fixed line or company number, how we can trust that. And these were the actually two questions. When we answer these questions, it seems that now we have the solution that will cover major part of the problem. So, as Jukka explained, we use the HSS when people from Finland, for example, roam to Ireland. We have always the information about the subscribers' whereabouts, so that we can use in for the international roaming call case. And then we have another one is that when we get, for example, calls from call centers around the world, how we can know that this is a valid call or not. This is a little bit tricky, but we get also ideas from another white papers. So basically I could say that the thing is that if somebody, consumer or the business customer is calling from Ireland to Finland, so there's a kind of interface where we take, or one of our Finnish operators take the call and pass that to the Finnish telephone network and finally to the receiving party. But if you think of that as a term of the spoof call or fraudster call center, it's very hard that we can detect the valid calls and the spoof calls here. So the technology by itself doesn't allow much to see the difference here from the spoofed and the valid calls. So what was the solution here is that Jukka explained. We think of this problem like a firewall. So the basic idea is that we don't allow anymore no calls with a Finnish calling line ID coming from abroad. So what we do then? Actually, we take those calls to the interconnection gateway, and that operator number one in that international interface, in order to show here the receiving party, the Finnish calling line ID, has to do two things. One thing is that it has to identify the customer, so who is placing the call, And once the customer is identified, that operator number one has to allocate from the pool of that of the numbers belonging to this customer here. So basically it's like a firewall. And once you have done these two things, then you can put it forward. Any questions, any ideas, comments? So in this case, our recommendation was given this February, but it seemed to be so that the operators like Elisa and the others preferred much better regulation, and that was given in May this year. And this regulation will be implemented in phases, so that fixed network thing was implemented 1st of July this year, and later on next year there will be a deadline for this mobile solution. And of course, we analyzed here a lot of relevant legislation of EU and so on. So that was a background and very integral part of our work. So any questions, any ideas, any comments? Yeah, please do so.
So on the second use case, you can go one slide back.
Yep.
Solution.
Mm.
That to allow for this kind of whitelisted way of having a small subset of numbers that you know that are valid even if they come from abroad.
Mm.
When you say they have the client or the caller has to still be identified.
Yes.
So is there some other steps that you're taking that, for example, you know each length of the routing call and you trust all those providers through those legs, or is it just based on the A number being on the whitelist?
No, we are not using whitelisting here. So it is, if you think of like a voice over IP gateway, think of that like that. So what we, I could say that what is a very typical or general use cases here that actually this call center might locate in Australia, like in the States or Spain, and there's a voice over IP connection to Finland, and in the gateway we the operator number one does this. So you could say that the old-fashioned PSTN calls from abroad, no, those kind are not allowed with a Finnish calling line ID anymore.
Thank you.
Yeah, please do so.
You said in the first slide that there were other models, but they were not suitable for this. Can you just name why, or like what other models there were in other countries? Like what other solutions did others come up with, and why did they pick this?
Okay, well, if you think of very large framework, or it has been quite successful, is for like a stir and shaken, which is used in North America. The thing is that if we would implement stir and shaken here in Finland or Europe, I think that would demand a quite heavy in investment load. So I would say that the technology is a very costly one. But of course there are also other possibilities for the technology. But that is just one example. Yeah, please.
This is probably not possible from a regulatory point of view, but just thinking out loud. So if you're really confident that the caller is not legitimate, in theory you could just answer the call using some bot and try to waste the time of the caller. So AI pretend to be a victim and waste their time.
Yeah.
Probably not possible, I assume, from a legal point of view.
Yeah, basically. Theory, yes. but that's not part of our regulation. Yeah, please.
Can you hear me for this?
Yes, I can.
Is it in Traficom's mandate to think about
Yeah.
future technology, or is your focus on making do with what exists now and touching it up?
Yeah, I could say that we are also thinking of the future steps, but I think that this is a stage that at the moment, this day, we are now pretty happy. But I would say that in a future years, I think we will push something for more, but that remains to be seen.
So at no point in this process, you said you worked on this for a year, at least a year?
Yeah, this took some, I could say, one full year.
So at no point in the process do you think, I wish I could tear it all down, build it up properly, something?
No. Mm-hmm. Yep, please.
How about text messages? Has anything like this been done for that part?
Yeah, that is a very good question, and I would say that that very problem you're mentioning is now on my task list. So that is something that I'm very actively looking now at the very moment.
We will be giving you the next presentation in a few months.
Yeah. Yeah, we are making progress there also.
Does it mean that you're actually going to not allow the sender to be just text? Because quite often you get also messages where there's only text as the sender.
Well, yeah.
Paid SMSs maybe, but you can't block them because there's no number. It's text.
Yeah. Basically, what they're talking about, I don't know if they're familiar with a concept called SMS sender ID. So that alphanumeric text you are seeing is SMS sender ID, and that is something that in Europe is allowed in most countries to send those and also receive. But there are also countries, as far as I know, they are like South Africa and also the United States that don't allow subscribers to receive those with sender ID. So, of course, what you are saying is that that is one tricky part that we have to solve. Yeah, please.
One more question. How about, have you considered ruling about something like allowing customers to make their own whitepads? So that I could say that anything on my contact list can call me or can text me and nothing else.
Well, first of all, I could say that as a Traficom, probably I would say that we won't push that kind of recommendation or law legislation or regulation. But I would say that if mobile operators would like to launch that kind of service and make that possible to as a part of the subscription as an optional one, I think we are happy that if they launch that. But that is basically a kind of a business decision. But I would say also that I guess that there are some terminal types with a special software that actually you can restrict who can call you. So also probably you don't even need a service from your operator. Probably you can do with your terminal.
Yeah, this is easy implemented in your phone app.
Yeah.
And the operator doesn't know your contact, so it's kind of not their business.
Okay, I think we are done. So, Jussi, please.
it good? Yep, yep, yeah. So yeah, I gotta start off by saying, if this was a rock concert, we would have just heard an hour of just banging hits and these guitar riffs, and I'm gonna swoosh in for the last 5 minutes with a slow dance. So feel free to grab a friend, maybe have a light. Don't burn down the house with a lighter.
Use the flashlights.
Yeah, use flashlights, preferably. So my name is Jussi. I'm from the National Bureau. I work as a international cooperation expert. My focus points are many. I'm a kind of an odd job kind of a guy, but I focus also on online frauds, and for that reason I'll be presenting here. I got like 5 minutes, so I'll be quick. Just to introduce the MBI, it's not just helicopters and high-speed chases. On Wednesdays, we sit down and we do situational awareness picture. So, and I stuck on that, so that's pretty much what I do, or used to do. We have some people, we sit down, we're the eyes and ears of the police, of the law enforcement agencies, and because we're getting all the reports. We're the go-to guy when you become a victim. You call us and you file a report to us. And now at the MBI, not doing the investigation, more of we're trying to figure out the bigger picture, and that's what we've been doing here. And I'm super happy about the project. I'll show you some figures, and I'll tell you why this stuff really matters. Right, so here's the help desk fraud dilemma, as I called it. Copyright's on me. And early 2020, we started getting a lot of calls, local police reports coming in when people were getting calls in English. First of all, at first they were foreign numbers. But anyways, I'm not going to go into specifics. I'm going to cut corners because I need to be done in a few minutes. We started seeing quite fast in the mid-2020s that the perpetrators, first of all, they used some really, really simple techniques. The operators were able to do some gimmicks, and Gotti talked about the bear. We ran for a while faster than the other guys. Then the perpetrators, the criminals, the sneaky bananas they are, they started using spoofing technique, and we kept on having this problem. This is pretty much the same figure that all the countries are having. Started pretty much the same time, plus minus half a year. But it's looking like this in all the countries. And as mentioned before, we were talking with Traficom, we were talking with the operators. When I talk about we or me, it's usually not me, I'm just taking credit. But so we were talking, we knew about the project. We were happy to give our insight, because the thing is, when we get the reports coming in, we know how it looks to the customer, the victim. And we were trying to pass on that information. Coming to 21, you learned about the project, how it's going. Coming, fast forwarding to early 2022, we've only had one incident report coming in, or police report, where a person has been called from a spoofed number, and it's been a helpless fraud. The few numbers on 2022 are basically some other way of contacting the victim, not calling. In this case, we outrun the other guys, or at least we're ahead of them right now. We're super happy about this, and this is something that makes a difference. Putting all these figures together, these are 1,500 police reports that we had, and people lost 7.1 million altogether just by this. There were some talks earlier about how is it possible, like like, is it just the Finnish number? The caller is English, doesn't speak that good of an English. That makes the difference. It's about trust. And my dad would have fallen, but he has me. I call him every day and like warn about the world. So, okay, so on a bigger scale, the thing is, it's not just the help desk fraud, modus operandi, as we call it. It's very fancy, the type of crime. Those things change. We have new criminal events, new modus operandi coming in all the time, but the tools remain. And that's the thing, like we were now able to affect one of the main tools, and it's not just, as I told you, it's not just this, it's the CEO of the back frauds. We're gonna hear about those later on. Just in 21, we had 200 plus cases, companies reporting loss of almost 6 million. Lot of scams last year, 6 million, 400 people lost all their money. Investment frauds, 20 million last year. These all are scams that internationally the perpetrators use spoofing techniques as one of the tools. There are many others. The thing is, the helpless fraud and a lot of scams, investment frauds, these hit the private people, the common people, and that was very superior of me. And it's devastating. It's not that they lose 450 euros or something. They lose everything they have, and it's super bad. And you can't blame it. I'm totally against victim blaming. Yeah, go ahead.
Just for this Euro discussion here, do you have any statistics on how the money is actually transferred out? Is it bank transfers or crypto coins or whatever it is these days? Do you have statistics on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do. It's depending on the crime. It's usually it's a money transfer, bank transfer, or bank transfer, buying cryptos, depending on the type of crime. But yeah, it's victim blaming, and these cases are just futile. We have the smartest people who have fallen into these scams. If you put together spoofing techniques, some social engineering, other factors, anybody could be a victim. There's always the one guy saying, not me, I'm the guy, but there's always, everybody could be scammed. On our point of view, this preventative project is most important because investigation is pretty hard. We struggle with resources. They're very scarce. With police, and it's not just the online frauds, we have to take care of everything. So finding these out-of-the-box solutions mean the world. And as said, trust, and affecting the trust that the perpetrators are getting. This is the diamond example of how that trust was affected. We know we're not, like, this doesn't solve everything. This solved some, but thanks to these guys, we have, I would say, like thousands of people right now who can still go to their bank accounts and they still have their money, because the stories behind are super tragic. It shouldn't be left. So looking into this spoofing project is an example of great cooperation. We aim to do cooperation. We know cooperating with the public sector isn't very hot. We can be very slow in many cases, but we're getting there, and what we're looking into is finding players like the operators, the Elisa guys, Traficom, getting together and offering what we have, because what we have is the figures, the stories behind, and we can look into the actual what's been going on. We can find the golden nuggets that we can affect into, as the whole spoofing project did. And bringing a situational picture overall. That's our job at the MBI. We're happy to share it. Not everything, not to everybody, but if a trustful cooperation project is started, like, we are most definitely happy to show what we have and talk about what we could do together. This is pretty big internationally. That's one of the reasons I'm very happy. We've been doing this set and some law enforcement meetings internationally. Usually there's just silence afterwards, because we have most of countries who are still thinking what we did a few years back, that, for example, spoofing, nothing can be done, it's impossible. And now we have this annoying country called Finland showing that actually you can. And we were happy, and we've been happy to talk about it. The thing is, it's not just giving the right amount of code or just an answer on a USB stick. It's a very tedious project, but that's why we have the Traficom people describing to other countries, and they are interested, and yeah, you'll figure it out. I'm sure you get it. Okay, I'm gonna end with start a dialogue with us. If you're feeling you're working for a company or you're a service provider and you know that your platform, your company, anything has been used in scams, online frauds, feel free to contact us if you have any ideas how to make it a bit harder for the bananas who are doing this. And we're happy to help. Steal the credit. Yeah. And yeah, again, I've told this many times to the Elisa guys, the operator guys, Traficom, that you guys made this happen. And if I mentioned about, like, being in a concert, this stuff is Metallica level. Yeah, that's it. Thanks, guys.